Hi friends, welcome to Shashi tutorial. This I'm redoing as a lot of my last videos have been missing from YouTube. Nevertheless, in these tutorials, we'll be focusing on the base SAS. Now, let's get started. Now, before we understand or get into the basics of SAS, I'll take you from the basics towards every bit and component of SAS, and I will try and see if the videos can be much more informative in nature. So let's start with what is SAS. Now, SAS is basically, so this is the SAS environment. As you see now, SAS is basically a collection of modules that are used to process and analyze data. Now, it began in the late 60s and early 70s as a statistical package. The name SAS originally stood for Statistical Analysis System. However, unlike many competing statistical packages, SAS is also an extremely powerful and a general purpose programming language. Now, SAS is predominantly or the predominant software mostly in the pharmaceutical and many Fortune 500 companies, and in recent years it has enhanced to provide a state-of-the-art data mining tool and programs for web development and analysis. Now, in our tutorials, we'll be covering the most basic data management and programming tools which are used in Base SAS. Now there would be statistical procedures which I'll be coming up with. That would be series of my next tutorials, and you can check out my channel for that. It will be available also soon. Now let's just get down to about learning some basic or what would be the very basis of learning this. Now, the only way to really learn a programming language is to write a lot of program and make some errors and correct these errors. Then you can make some more errors and correct them. Okay, so I'll be doing these programs, I'll be writing down in front of you, but there would be some of these data files which would be needed, and I'll be providing you the link where you can download these data files. Now, if you are part of any school or work and you already have access to SAS, I think you can approach them to get a licensed SAS for you. And if you are learning SAS of your own and you do not have a copy of SAS, you can still obtain it free from the SAS. And if you don't know what I'm saying, you can browse for the SAS University edition. Okay, so the SAS University edition is basically the free version of SAS. So whatever we are doing here, this will be, you can use all these programs to run in your university edition of the SAS. It would be very simple, and there won't be any sort of difference if you are trying to run it on a foundation versus a university program. Okay. Now, let's understand about the most fundamental thing about getting the data into SAS. Now, SAS can read data from almost any sources. Common sources of data are raw text files, then Microsoft Office, Excel spreadsheet, Access databases are there, and most of the common database systems such as DB2 and Oracle. So most of the tutorials here you'll be seeing will be either using a text file or an Excel spreadsheet as a data source. Now, SAS also comes with a collection of the kind of a temporary data set. If you can get a hand on that, that would be also great for your practice. As I mentioned, I'll be putting the data collection, my own data collections link at the bottom. You can just check it out. Now let's start off doing a basic or a sample SAS program. Okay, now let's start out with giving an overview about what is a basic sample, a basic SAS program. Now, for example, uh, let me start showing by seeing a data file. Now, this is basically a SAS data file, or just a plain txt data file. Now, uh, each line in this, if you see in the text file what you are seeing now, each line in this file, it contains following pieces of information. Now these are all separated by spaces. Now there is a vegetable name you see here, and then you see a code, and you see the number of days it takes to germinate, then the number of seed, and then the price. Now in SAS terminologies, now each information is called a variable. In other database system and sometimes in SAS, we use the term as column. So that's the overall construction of this file. Now in this example, each line of data, what SAS calls is an observation, and also it is referred to as a row in other system. Now a complete SAS program to read the data file and produce a list of data, a frequency count showing the number of entries for each vegetable, then the average price per seed, and the average number of days until germination. So this would be the objective of our first program. So let's get started with that. Let me close this. So the first thing that we are going to do is write out with option, no number, no date, and start with data as veg, and in file we'll give the path of the file where it is located, which is my C drive, and it is learn, and the file name is veggies.txt. Then we'll write the input statement. So input name, then dollar, code, dollar, days, then number, and price. Then cost per seed is equal to price by number. And we'll run this program. So you see 8 records were read from the file. So this program got executed. I'll explain each of the statement and how does it function, but let us complete the whole program first. Now, title, this is for report, list of the raw data, then proc print data equal to wedge, and run. The second will be title. We are generating a frequency distribution here. Frequency distribution of vegetable names. So proc frequency and data equal to wedge. And table as name, and run this. Let me complete the last one, which is title, average cost. Cost of seats. Proc means data equal to wedge, and variable price. Oh, it is price and days. So these are the programs, and I'll explain you what does each of these mean. Now, if you see, now SAS often, all the SAS programs would often contain a data step. So a data step and a proc step. So the data step are the part of the program where you can read or write the data, manipulate the data, and perform calculations. Whereas proc, which is the short form for procedure, steps are part of your program where you ask SAS to run one or more of its procedure to produce a report. Now, you can write it to produce reports or summarize data, generate graphs, and much more. The data steps begin with the word data, and proc steps begin with the word proc. Most data and proc steps end with a run statement, and each SAS processes SAS processes each data or proc step completely and then goes on to the next step. Okay, and SAS also contains global statement that affect the entire SAS environment, and they remain in effect from one data or proc step to another. Now, in this program, the option and the title statement examples are global statement. It's important to keep in mind that the action of the global statements remain in effect until they are changed by another global statement or until you end your SAS sessions. Now, all SAS programs, whether they're part of a data or a proc step, are made up of statements. And there are some thumb rules of the SAS statements, and it is that it ends with semicolons. Now, let's discuss some of the basic rules for SAS statement. First, they can begin in any column and can span several lines if necessary. Because a semicolon determines the end of a SAS statement, you can place more than one statement in a single line. Now, you can write the whole program in a single line, but that might not look very organized, and also the spacing would be also very haphazard, and it won't be very legible. Now, in common practice, to start each SAS statement on a new line is very good, and to indent each statement with a data or a proc step and step by several spaces is also very good. Another thing you notice about the SAS is it's not case sensitive. Well, I think this is almost true. Of course, there are references. If you have to give to some external files, it must match the rules of a particular operating system. So if you are running SAS under a Linux or a Unix system, the file names would be case sensitive. Now, in our later tutorials, you will get the name of the variables in the SAS dataset, and the variable names that you are seeing in my current program as name, code, days and numbers, price, cost per seed. So these are the variable names. Now, although SAS doesn't care whether you are writing these names in uppercase, lowercase or mixed case, it does remember the case for each variable the first time it encounters the variable, and uses the same form of variable name when producing printed reports. So, in terms of the SAS names, now the SAS names, they follow a simple naming rule that all SAS variable names and dataset can be no longer than 32 characters, and they must follow a letter or an underscore character. They must begin with an underscore character. Then the remaining characters in the name may be a letter, digit or an underscore. Now, let's talk about the SAS datasets. The SAS, we'll be talking a lot of the SAS datasets throughout our tutorial, but for now, you need to know that the SAS reads data from anywhere. It can be a raw data or spreadsheet. It stores the data in its own special form, which is called as the SAS dataset. Now, only SAS can read and write a SAS dataset. If you open a SAS dataset with another program such as Microsoft Word, you won't like how it opens it. You would find funny characters and funny looking graphics. So in other words, it would look like nonsense. Even if SAS is reading data from an Oracle table or a DB2, it is actually converting the data into a SAS dataset format in the background. So the good news is that you don't have to worry about how SAS is storing its data or the structure of the data set. However, it is important to understand the SAS data can contain two parts, a descriptor portion and a data portion. Not o- not not only SAS stores the actual data values for you, it stores the information about the values. It is like the storage length, the label, the formats. So we'll be discussing those things later in the tutorial. SAS datasets now have only two types of variables, which is character and numeric. This makes it much simpler to understand and use. The the other programs that may have many more data examples for integer, long integer, logical. So there might be many more data types, but not in SAS. Now SAS determines a fixed storage length for every variable. Most SAS users never need to think about the storage length for a numerical values. So they are stored in 8-bit, which is about 14 to 15 significant digits, depending on the operating system, if you don't specify it otherwise. And majority of the SAS users will never have to change the default values. Now each character value, that means the data stored as letter or special character and digit, is assigned a fixed storage length explicitly by the program and by the program statement or by various rules that the SAS rules that the SAS has about the length of the character values. Now if we understand the SAS windowing environment, the SAS enterprise guide that we currently are using, and then we have the SAS University edition. Now because SAS runs on many different platforms like mainframes, microcomputers, and Unix, Linux, the way you write and run program will vary. You might use a general purpose text editor on a mainframe to write a SAS program and then submit it and then send the output back to a terminal or a file. On a PC, you might be using as a SAS windowing environment, like the current one you are seeing. And this is enhanced editor that you are seeing wherein we wrote our program. And any error message you'll be seeing, those comments you can see in the log window, and the view of the output you can see in the output window. The other way to write and there are other ways to write a SAS program and submit it, which is basically done in a product called the SAS Enterprise Guide, which is basically a front end to SAS that allows you to use a menu driven system to write a SAS program and produce report. One other alternative to windowing environment or the enterprise guide is the SAS Studio. And then we have the SAS University edition, which is a free SAS, which uses the SAS Studio as the entry into the SAS systems. In terms of the books that you can follow, there are a number of SAS books which have very detailed instructions on how to run programs and what would be the appropriate method. You can follow any book that you can find, and I think it would be great to follow them along with my tutorials. So that's all for this introduction for SAS, and thank you. I'll be checking you in the next tutorial.